in a short amount of time, I've gone from knowing the fringes of it to being much closer to a subject matter expert in this field.
And then it becomes an instruction manual that talks back to you.
And it definitely accelerates how I get through my projects.
Last time on SkarrCast, we talked about what happens when you let AI take care of the basics so students can learn faster and mentorship time can go deeper. That's exactly what we're exploring today. You're going to meet Dustin, an Army veteran and former industrial electrician from Arlington, Washington, now transitioning into cybersecurity. He's an intern with ICS Village, the nonprofit that teaches and defends industrial control systems, and a student of SkarrNet founder Dennis Skarr. And he's been using AI to accelerate everything: troubleshooting, research, learning workflows, the parts that usually slow people down. What he's discovering is that when AI clears the early roadblocks, mentorship changes. Instead of spending time on fundamentals, he's able to use his time with Dennis to ask sharper questions and work on real-world problems that actually move him forward. That's the heart of this conversation. After I talk with Dustin, Dennis, Kat, Tara will join me to dig into what this means for mentorship, for creativity, and for how we teach in the age of AI. All right, Dustin. Welcome to SkarrCast. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. I'm ready to rock and roll. So let's get into it. Dustin, tell me a little about your background. Like, how did you go from industrial electrical work to cybersecurity?
I've always grown up adjacent to infrastructure. My dad's worked power plants his entire life since he got out of the Navy. Then from that, I went into the Army as a combat engineer. During my deployment to Iraq, we did infrastructure surveys, again, tied back to that same little tidbit of what I had grown up around. But it always fascinated me. After getting out of the military, I became a commercial and then an industrial electrician. Did a lot of automation and infrastructure projects, really piqued my interest. And the people that I was working with were always more towards the technical side than anywhere else on the job. And how their job functioned always fascinated me. And we would get to the end of these projects and they would always have their systems completely set up. And the customer would come back and be like, can we hook these things all together to make it a little easier for us to do it? And there was always this conversation about like how this is a bad idea. We don't do that. There were many times that in the end, like even though the customer understood the risks that we were telling them, they would still ask for the same thing. So I wanted to move towards making better systems, making safer systems, doing something that actually would have lasting impact for my community. I have combat injuries from when I was in the Army, and I needed to transition out of doing the electrical work because it was too hard on my body. And I started chasing my interests, and it really helped. So ended up going to Everett Community College, met up with Dennis, and yeah, it's been a fast ride since.
Oh, very good. You've gotten to work pretty closely with our SkarrNet founder here, Dennis Skarr. What has that experience been like?
It's been fantastic. I'm curious by nature, and he gave me an environment where I could stretch that curiosity to as far as I wanted to, without there being negative consequences. Facilitation of resources, of people, putting you in touch with the right people, pointing you in the right direction, and like turning you loose to explore. Like that's been my entire experience with him. He introduced AI concepts pretty early into our interactions with the STEM club there. And, it wasn't something I was unfamiliar with, and I was already starting to use it at the beginning of my college education, but it became very purposeful, very intentional, the way that we would prompt or just utilize in general. I have a natural curiosity. I have to know the why. And one of the big things that AI allows me to do is be incessant. I would wear an instructor down in a heartbeat if all of my curiosity had to be satisfied by that person. But using AI, I can take a subject matter that I have a little bit of knowledge in, and as long as I have the fundamentals, I can start asking those questions that cause you to stretch and go outside of it. And then when I encounter something, I can like rubber ducky it back. I can tell whatever the model is that I'm using, this is what I think the situation is. These are the points that I understand. Like, where is my understanding in this? I don't want it to tell me whether or not the answer is what I think it is. I want it to verify that I understand this the way that I think I do. And a lot of times it's like, yeah, you're right. And then you get that one spot where it's, no, you're not right at all. And being able to take that one moment and then chase it. Like, why do I not understand this? Why is it different? Why is the nuance here the one off and not the norm? And having that ability to chase those, like, we all have tangents that we have to chase. AI allows you to chase those tangents and develop that deeper understanding based on that tangent, and then still come back to that one spot that you were supposed to be working through in the lesson. But now, because you could chase that tangent, you really have a deeper understanding of everything that's going on around you. So yeah, he definitely made it to where I could get into that space much easier.
Yeah, I'm always hearing Dennis talk about his students and everything y'all are accomplishing. I think that's a great sign of a professor who's actually cares about, who actually measures his own success as an instructor and educator by his students' achievements and what the knowledge and experience that they're gaining. So yeah, it's really fascinating to actually hear from a student now. So you got to join Dennis at the CISI conference yesterday, the Colloquium for Information Systems Security Education, where you and the team built and presented a real like hands-on cybersecurity challenge. So basically this like capture the flag scenario where participants are solving puzzles and breaking down problems to uncover these like hidden clues. It sounds all very cloak and dagger. So walk us through that experience. What was that day like for you?
The capture the flag was a lot of fun. Everyone that participated in it definitely was enjoying themselves. They were laughing, they were hooting and hollering every time they got a flag. Like, it was awesome. While the CTF was going on, I also made a hands-on challenge using a couple of the small trainers that we had access to. They're mock industrial control simulators with a programmable logic controller, a red and a green light, push button. Super basic, but it's still the same thing that you would find in a water pumping station, any industrial facility. Like, it is the real thing that you would discover. But what I did was I gave an opportunity where you could, using a laptop, write a very small program in Python, which is accessible to many people, and then interact with the system in a way that would unlock a flag. And I cranked it out in about an hour and a half, but I ran into issues the entire time because every manufacturer, the way that their PLCs work is exactly the same, but totally different. So like inputs and outputs for some vendors are reversed in the way that they letter them. So you'll be looking at it and you'll be thinking that it works one way, but your thinking is exactly inverted from where it needs to be. So as I was going through trying to set this challenge up for everyone, I ran into issues where I thought I was working the right way, but what I was doing just wasn't working the right way. And I was getting these error codes that I hadn't ever seen before. So I turned around and copied and pasted it back into AI. I let it know, like, this is the situation of what I'm doing. I gave it just enough context to make it relevant. I included like what I was working in and how, and like what my expectation was, and then pasted that error code in so that it could give me feedback. And again, with the needing to know why, like, I wanted to know, like, well, why is it not working in this case? What do I have backwards here? And for some things it was, oh, your thinking is exactly backwards. For other things, it was the version of the module you're using in Python is updated from the one you thought you were using, and those commands don't work anymore. You have to do it this way. So even though I was knowledgeable in the program, I was using a different version and they changed things. But it helped me to power through. It wasn't a matter of like I didn't understand what I was doing. I was getting different errors that I didn't have time to plug through and like go through documentation, and I could get the answers directly there. So I did probably 4 iterations of my code back to back to back, understood what was going on, and what it gave me in the end still didn't work, but I could see what was wrong because I've already done this enough that like I've developed that knowledge. So I hand coded the rest of it out the way that I needed it and started flipping bits. And then suddenly on the simulator, you see the lights start doing exactly what I said they would do. And then you turn around and I wrote another script and ran it. And when I ran that, you could see the flag that I was talking about, exactly like I said it would work. But a year ago? So a year ago, I got introduced to these programs at this kind of a level where you have the opportunity to write the program to make it do something. And I've gone from that to building capture the flag exercises in a matter of just a couple hours. Like I definitely understand this much better than I would have any other way. But these hands-on projects, like I have such a deep understanding of this that in normal industry, if I were working with someone, that's the big part. I would be working with someone. There would be like a plant mentor or someone else that would be my supervisor that would be helping me do this work. But even in industry, like that's siloed knowledge. It doesn't necessarily get shared with everybody. But I have with Dennis, like giving me the tools to succeed and then stepping back to let me run with it. I have definitely gone from robo to rocket ship in the way that I learned this. I have the fundamental understanding of what I'm doing. I have the basics down solidly, and I'm stepping out to make it do exactly what I want it to do in the ways that I choose. But making that challenge for the CTF, I cranked that out and gave people the opportunity to. And I didn't have any takers for doing the actual exercise. But I walked a couple of people through what was going on and I showed them. And it gives a really good illustration of like in this field, a concept and an issue that a lot of people don't really grasp or understand. And in a short amount of time, I've gone from knowing the fringes of it to being much closer to a subject matter expert in this field.
Wow. And what role did AI play in all of that?
Vast majority of all of my development process was AI assisted. I outline things at the beginning. Like I have a rough framework of what I think is going to happen. And a lot of times I'll be like, hey, I want to do this project. This is what I think I need to do. Like, where is my plan short? Like, what am I lacking here? And I will build a new outline, usually more in depth than what I was going off of from there. And then it becomes researching each of the individual points of the project that I want to do. And then plugging away. A lot of it, like my own personal knowledge gets me through a fair amount of it. But without fail, every application of this knowledge is slightly different. So you run into a different problem that you haven't seen before. And while I don't have that 10, 15 year knowledge reserve to work off of all the other times that I've seen something similar, I still have a tool that I can reference and be like, okay, well, I know all of the things around the problem right now. Why is this one just a little bit different? And then I can chase effectively another tangent until I understand why my use case this time is just a little bit different. And it definitely accelerates how I get through my projects. I go much deeper in even my school assignments, than is necessary, because it's like, oh, hey, make this small program that does this. And it's like, well, that's cool. I know how to do that. Ooh, but I can make it do these things too. And that just looks way more fun. So I'll add those extra functions in, and I've gotten extra credit on assignments over that just because like I was chasing the fun. Like it's not a matter of like, checking the block when I do my assignments. Like I have the basic understanding of what I'm doing. So at this point, it's just fun. And AI allows me to dig deeper into the parts that still interest me, that still intrigue me about whatever it is that I'm doing. And chase that curiosity.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. With AI and emerging technology, everything's moving so quickly. And sometimes it feels like, what are we doing here? Are we on the right track? And so I can imagine going to a conference like this, the CISSE conference, you get to kind of compare yourself to where others are at. Were there any highlights from the conference?
Oh, goodness. Numerous. The keynote speaker was the CISO for Washington State, and pretty much his entire keynote speech was affirmation that the things that I am doing are where we need to be heading. I loved it. It was great. Like that part alone. And then also listening to the questions that came afterwards. One of them was, should we be introducing students to using AI at the beginning of our course or at the end of their 4 years here? And all I could think of was I'm the example of what happens when you've had it from the beginning. when you've used it as a tool to really propel yourself down that pipeline, why would you ever hold that back from students? Like, I recognize that for me, coming from a background where my nature is to question everything, what I get back when I get my responses from whatever my prompt is, like, I need to know, like, the references, the resources, like, where'd you get this information so that I can view it as trusted. But these critical thinking skills and abilities are things that I feel need to exist before people ever get to the college setting. Like, if they come into the game already having these skills, then when they're doing these assignments, these basic, like, getting your feet wet in the environment assignments, if they have something that removes the barriers, knocks down those roadblocks for them, then they chase the more fun opportunity of whatever it is that they're trying to learn. And it inserts that pleasure, that enjoyment in the learning experience that I feel keeping them away from it's just going to hinder. And it's not like students aren't going to use AI in the first place. Teach them how to use it in a way that's going to expand their ability. And that was very much echoed in all of the questions and comments that came around in that conference yesterday. And while we were doing the CTF as well, I had a gentleman I was speaking with. I want to say he was a CISO, but I don't remember for where. And his question to me was, well, like, what would you use it for? And I pulled out my phone and I was like, I use it for anything I want to do better. Yes, I play video games with my wife, and I have one project that's dedicated to that game. And what I'm doing in that doesn't interfere with any of my other conversations that I'm having, but I have one that's built around my home lab. I have one that's built around the CTF that I was working on. And when I'm trying to, like, work in a hyper-focused manner, I dig right into one at a time, and I walked him through my process. And he's like, I should have one of these for everything that I'm doing. And it's like, you should make your exact opposite. Make that employee you'll never have. Make it that point of view that, like, you yourself aren't going to have. And, like, watching the gears click in his head of, like, you're right, I'm never going to get that employee. I'm never going to get that other point of view. Like, it definitely is a conversation that not a lot of people seem to have, but it clicks hard once you start having it with people. That, like, this is that extra point of view that makes my job that much easier.
Wow. And for our viewers, CTF is capture the flag. But I really love how you frame this as, like, opportunity chasing. Like, there's so much good and sort of advanced knowledge you can gain by using these tools, and you're just constantly chasing that next really cool discovery you'll find. Okay, so let's take a step back and talk about sort of your own learning journey. I'd love to hear about, like, the first time maybe, or one of the first times you used AI on a project. Like, are there any examples of how AI has helped your learning as a student?
So I'm an intern for ICS Village, still in that industrial controls niche. They brought me in and then sent me a trainer in a suitcase. So it's a switch, human machine interface, touchscreen, so that you can make the system do what you want it to do.
And this simulates, like, a public safety
industrial process. So, and then programmable logic controller inside. So all of the components work together, but there was no documentation behind it. So imagine a suitcase full of things. You're told that it all works, and go figure it out. So sure, like, it's no big deal. We'll just figure it out. I took the manuals for everything, all of the technical documents I could find. I scoured the internet until I found everything for them. I started dropping them in for a project so that I could consolidate my knowledge base, because I was already having problems with the system. Like, it wasn't working the way I wanted it to. So I put in all the documents and I started explaining, like, what my problem was exactly. And troubleshooting wise, it took this random box of components that it knew exactly what they were, and it bounced me from device to device, one at a time, working through the entire troubleshooting process. It wasn't a matter of, like, we're going to troubleshoot everything on the switch first, and then, oh, okay, we're going to move to this next device and do everything here. It was, well, the top problems could be these. Where do we want to go first? Let's work this problem. And it bounced me around through until I chased down the fault and got rid of it. But that was a matter of 4 hours of troubleshooting that started at the very beginning of the internship with brand new equipment I had never touched, and I had to get it working. So in no time flat, like, I had confidence in my system. Then on top of that, So just the technical manuals for the devices themselves, not such a big deal. The program that you use to make the programmable logic controllers work is proprietary. Every vendor has their own system behind it. Every one of them, again, works exactly the same, but exactly different. The manual for it's only 21,000 pages. Yeah.
Wait, what?
21,000 plus pages of manual to make the program do what you want it to do. But like that, yeah. And like that knowledge sink of like, well, I have a very specific use case. I need to make this function this way. Well, where do I go? I mean, in a document that big, like really, where do you go? But using AI, I could definitely focus much better on the parts of the document that were relevant to me. It wasn't a matter of like trying to hunt and peck through what I could only imagine would be like a 90s phone book from LA and try and figure out like what's going on. But like, I'm always a fan of read the manual. You can't tell me that the expectation is that everyone who uses that program has read through 21,000 pages of a manual to use that program. I don't believe that. I'm sure lots of people have referenced it. Like it's a great reference document at that size, but AI makes it so that you can blaze through that information so much faster.
What is even in 21,000 pages? Like, does it teach you how to like cook dinner and go through puberty and like what?
Well, and that's the crazy part is like it is also not the most user-friendly document I've experienced. While it gives you information, it doesn't always give it in context. That was actually one of the biggest issues that I had was, okay, cool. I'm going through the 21,000 page document and I'm doing what it says to do. I can't find this menu option that it says is here. And then I would take a screenshot of what I'm trying to do in the program and I would paste it into my GPT and say, hey, this is what it's telling me to do, and I'm still lost. What's wrong here? Oh, you're on the wrong view. You need to shift it to this view and then click this menu to get to that information.
That would have taken you days to figure out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes, especially in things that are complex like that, like it's a matter of you're not on the right screen to do that setting. And like, your frustration level compounds when those are the things that are your stumbling blocks. Like, it's not a matter of, I don't understand what I'm doing here. It's a matter of, well, I'm trying to do the thing that I understand, but it's not here. Oh, you're just shift over and go to the right spot. Oh, sweet. Awesome. Great. Got it. And then once I got to that spot, everything else for my project just ducks in a row all the way down. But being on the wrong screen was a common issue that I encountered using that program and that manual. Like, it did not, and I would go back and try and flip back to be like, did it tell me somewhere on like previous pages to be here? And it's like, nope, this is a module that's like on this page here. I was on this view that I'm still in, and now I'm in a completely different place, but nobody ever gave me that direction. And this got me past those really simple, but really big roadblocks.
And it's not something like you can just go on YouTube and watch a video on how to change out your spark plugs. This is a complex machine.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other part of it is like, if I were in setting doing the maintenance on this, there might be someone in that facility that knows how to do all of that work, very specific to their location. They will know how to keep that machine functioning because we always use the same everything, the same program, the same device. When it breaks, we replace it one for one with whatever it was that was broken. Like, it is always the same. But oftentimes they don't know how to branch out to the newer version of whatever that is. But having tools like AI, especially in settings like this, definitely gives you the tools to get to that point faster. You could, if you had to, step away from older insecure systems to newer, more up-to-date systems and make an actionable plan ahead of time. You could work through all of the pieces parts. And then when you ran into the problems, which you absolutely will, like that's part of every project I've ever worked, you have a great plan until you start executing it. And then you find all the hidden things that we're missing. Like, I get a lot of my roadblocks out of the way using AI, and I catch things that I would not have seen because of my own biases before I get started in using AI. But like the conference building, the CTF having the knowledge and the plan ahead of time only gets you so far. Once you start encountering things that you haven't before, like sometimes you need to do things at speed, and it definitely provides you, especially when you have the fundamentals down, it gives you a tool that you can move through those problems and be effective. It really is a force multiplier.
And so what exactly did you do? Did you like take a PDF of the 21,000 page document and then upload it to your AI?
For the majority of the documents, I did, yes. For the 21,000 page document, that was too big to upload naturally.
Right.
So it has to be converted to something that takes up less space. But yeah, it's literally you upload all of the important documents to whatever the project is that you're working into one folder, and it becomes if you tell it to, it becomes the initial reference point that it goes to. So if I have a complex system, but I know what makes it work, I can put that knowledge into it first and say, when I have problems, this is where we go to first. Don't trust these outside sources. I need to start here.
And then it becomes an instruction manual that talks back to you.
Yeah. I hear about knowledge bases and company wikis about how they've gone through and they've worked their problems, but it's the same thing. I mean, it's a vast knowledge base that you can ask a question to and get I don't want to say definitive answer every time, because like there's still going to be some work that you go through, but it definitely gets you much closer to an actionable result in significantly less time.
So instead of memorizing, you're out there actually doing. So what does that feel like to have that kind of learning power in your hands?
Right now it feels, well, first it's really empowering, like straight out of the gate, but also it feels, I'd say, dissonant with the world around me. There's this tool that when you're utilizing it the right way, it kind of feels like anybody could do whatever it is that I'm doing. Like all I'm doing is asking it questions and chasing it down with the knowledge that I already have. But at the same rate, like I got to this knowledge base that I have from asking it questions. Like that is what got me to this point in the first place. I recognize that I recognize they're small, but like I'm building industrial systems on the fly to serve a purpose that I pulled out of thin air. It's not a skill that you just are born with. This is something that people train and work to get towards. And I've gotten there in an astoundingly short amount of time. But everything about it has been from AI. And like, it feels really weird to look at the world around me and be like, well, I could probably do that job. Like, I just have to know what the questions are to ask. And it's not a matter of whether or not an employer is going to be able to answer the questions for me. Like, I care and I don't care if the employer is going to answer the questions. I want to know what's right by the company for sure. But like, if it's a matter of fundamentals, I don't have to go to my employer to get that knowledge. I can be like, hey, I'm doing this kind of work. This is what I'm using. Give me the fundamentals. Like, walk me through the basics. Like, get me the explain like I'm five version of this. And let's just start digging deeper. But I don't think there's very much that I've come across that I know I haven't. We did a capture the flag for a high school group last year. And in that we were using Raspberry Pis and motors to do like a simulated industrial system. And it just wasn't nothing of it was working. And I ended up using the AI to troubleshoot like why nothing was working. I figured out how to make a persistent virtual environment on Raspberry Pi so that the hat that we put on top of the Raspberry Pi would stay working. I figured out how to network my Pis together, all in a matter of probably a week and a half. But it was all things that I hadn't had any kind of training or knowledge in prior. I didn't have a knowledge base to go off of. It was something that I saw the problem, I could explain it, I could understand it, and I could make a plan to get to a solution. And using AI to hammer out each of the finer points of my plan got me there in no long amount of time.
Wow. Raspberry Pi, I need to make a run to the bakery. I'll be right back. What is Raspberry Pi?
They are a small single board computer. They are a lot of fun. They're made for prototyping. So you can come up with an idea and then at not much cost, develop a working concept of what it's supposed to be. I've used a Raspberry Pi to make like a Again, AI projects. I used a Raspberry Pi to make a data forwarder from my one network to a VPN that I set up at my house. Again, AI project. I did not know how to set up a VPN server. I didn't know about DNS forwarding. Like, I didn't know any of the broad strokes that I needed to do, but I understood enough to make a plan, do my research, figure out my pieces parts, and everything worked. Like, it once you start asking the questions, as long as you're willing to chase it, as long as you're willing to follow your curiosity, you can pull it off.
So it sounds like what AI helps you do is give you more of a kind of a baseline understanding of what you're working with. And then that frees you up to be more creative and be more sort of advanced in your application of what it is you're trying to learn. In our last episode of SkarrCast, Tara was talking about how we can kind of flip this learning model called Bloom's taxonomy. We can flip that on its head so that AI helps us understand the basics. So then we're spending our time on more advanced endeavors. And I'm curious about applying that concept to mentorship. Now, mentors are very valuable people. They have experience and knowledge and expertise that they can then share with others. And sort of as a student, as an intern, I can imagine your mentorship time is very valuable. Now, does AI affect the quality of time you're spending with your mentors? Like, are you able to kind of spend less time on the basics and more time on more advanced concepts?
Oh, yeah. So my time with Dennis has definitely gone, I'm not asking the basic learning questions. Like, it's not a matter of like, I'm trying to build out my fundamentals. I have the opportunity to be like, hey, I was trying to do this and I ran into this weird spot. Did you know this? And like, it fosters, really interesting conversations. We went to, DEF CON this past year in Las Vegas, and I got to sit with Dylan Lee, and he is one of the members of ICS Village. Phenomenal at the work that I'm getting into. Just, I feel like that might be an understatement. But I was trying to build a program on the simulator that they sent me, and I had questions that I did not know how to get past. And using AI does get you to a point, and sometimes you will hit spots that even AI can't remove the road. But the great part is when you hit that spot and you have a mentor and you can talk to that mentor, like, it's already a deeper conversation. Like, we were talking about the way to do the thing that I was doing, and he paused for 10 seconds and already had an idea of like how to work around that problem. But it had been something that even with AI, I had been working on for several weeks. And even then, talking about like ways that the trainer could be used, I had used AI to give me the basics. Like, what can this piece of equipment inside of the trainer do? What are its benefits to using this? Why would we use this? What are its use cases? And working through like building that kind of knowledge in the first place, he and I also had conversations about deeper structure behind how that trainer could get used in a classroom environment or a training facility. And it was conversations that I definitely did not feel any kind of intimidated to have. I absolutely understood what we were talking about. Like, I definitely was past the fundamentals of what needed to be known to have those conversations. But instead of me wasting his time with a, hey, how do you program a switch to do the thing? It's a matter of, no, it can absolutely do that. We could do it like this. And like, I brought my own fully fledged ideas into the conversation and was not intimidated in the process of doing it. And I feel like that's probably the biggest thing is like, mentors are great. And when you have a great mentor, like, you generally are not intimidated bringing a bigger idea to your mentor to be like, how will this work out? Do you think we could do this? Do you think this is something that I could pull off? When you have this confidence and this tool and resource in your pocket, like, it really becomes a matter of, I've breezed past these fundamentals because I understand them, and I have this creative ability that I can put towards this problem. And then it really just becomes a matter of, hey, check this out. And there is no intimidation there. It's very nice. It's kind of freeing, honestly.
Well, Dustin, you've given us a really great window into how this looks from the student perspective. So I'd like to bring in the rest of the team to explore what this means for teaching and mentorship. So joining us now are the SkarrNet team. Hello.
Hello.
So you've been listening in, and Dennis, I'll start with you. What stands out hearing Dustin's story?
It's incredible to hear. I think every teacher goes into teaching to see students succeed. And watching Dustin and other students really excel over the last years has been the greatest joy of teaching. And there's so much that you can teach in a classroom. But what I think Dustin was really sharing here today are amazing things that you can learn outside of the classroom and things that don't fit within the textbook. And watching Dustin succeed is puts energy in me. So it feeds itself watching him go and lead, it's amazing. And with a student like Dustin, where you can give him, like, especially with AI, he's got these great visions and ideas and wants to do amazing things, but there's only so much time on campus. There's only so much time on. But I'm like, here's how you build these tools to support you, and watch him take off like a rocket. Oh, my dog just barged into the barn. So yes, this isn't a barn. Watching him just like excel and meet those goals. And then during our weekend check-ins, having him in a very excited way, sharing that and blowing my mind with what he was able to accomplish within that week, is incredible. And as an educator that not only teaches to like what's in the syllabus, but my goal is to get students into the workforce and be competitive and compete against other students, essentially. I mean, they're all competing against each other for one job. And seeing him build his resume like he is with all these different skills and get him ready for a role in cybersecurity has been extremely rewarding. And it's been a great journey. And I think most importantly, for me, like, I learn a lot from students like Dustin. If not, I feel like I learn more from them than they learn from me in these experiences. And how I see him use these tools and learn and adjust it to his style of learning and his needs, I grab that and then work with the next student. I'm like, okay, how can I coach other students to kind of be as successful as the work that Dustin's doing? And it's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing. And it's a game changer for those of us who want to prepare students for the future.
What do you think, Dustin?
Well, I mean, you have definitely given us great platforms to go from. And I appreciate you giving us the chance to take ownership of it. It absolutely is why I am where I am right now. And sharing it with people. Like, it's just a matter of the knowledge and understanding of how to use the tools. Even the conference yesterday, everybody was like, we have this opportunity, but when is the right time to use it? What's the right approach to using it? And I feel like you are definitely nailing down the right way to do it. I appreciate it, God, so much.
Yeah. Awesome. And to other like educators out there, like I'm like, AI and how Dustin's using this tool is an extension of you. Like, it really is. It's not competing, it is not taking away, like, the way that we kind of like build these projects. Dustin's been he's presented at the world's largest hacker conference at DEF CON and was sharing his knowledge with technical experts for days and doing it extremely well, and then created his own workshop within hours at a conference, just the day before we filmed this yesterday. And that's normally, people are doing that mid-career or late career where they're putting on workshops at conferences. That's impressive. And it's very inspiring. And I think as we look at like how we prepare ourselves for the future of work and the future of education, he's a perfect example of what can be done, and he's leading in this space. And that's amazing. And I couldn't be any more proud of the work that he's doing and the other students that are really kind of excelling in this. And the feedback that I was getting at the conferences, both at DEF CON as well as at CISI yesterday, was like, he's a student? Wait, he's on his first year of college? Like, people were just no, like this, I didn't hear you right, and yeah, he is. He brings a wealth of background and understanding in the space, as well as amazing like soft skills and leadership that he gained from the Army. But here he is, and he's teaching people going through a master's program in cybersecurity on things that he's picked up and learned. And none of it was, from my direct transfer of knowledge to him. It was me inspiring and setting him up, or he comes to me with a challenge, like, I want to do this, like, cool, and kind of using that mentorship role, like, I would go about it like this, or here's a pitfall, or that might be a bit big, Dustin. Let's put a pin in that one, let's put a pin in that one and like maybe break this down into smaller projects. But, which was his first project that he brought my way, the first STEM club. He's like, I want to do all of this. And I was like, whoa, dude, it's your first quarter. Like, that sounds great. But let's pause that. But strangely enough, we visited that project in a brief conversation at the conference yesterday. And I was like, Dustin, how do you feel that you would be able to tackle that project right now? And what was your response?
Oh, I've already got so many ways that I would do it better as it is. And I absolutely feel confident that I could work this project. Like I am working on it on the side because it's attainable. Like I have no doubt that it's attainable, and I have the means to get to it. Like I have the tools to succeed in this, specifically because of the mentorship that I've received. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. And outside of the digital tools, like you mentioned, you have some family members that also are knowledgeable in this space, because you're going to be pulling from subject matter experts across multiple disciplines to make this thing work. And you know how to like leverage your network of people as well as this automated tool. And I think that's where the magic could really happen in a project like this. You shared that, you got to this certain point and you're having all these meaningful questions with Dylan, and you were able to kind of progress your knowledge of this system to the point where when you had that one-on-one time, that conversation would have been much, much different, if you weren't able to propel yourself the way that you did with this new way of learning.
For sure.
Oh my gosh. Getting the feels here.
I think that some people out there, especially in education, who are kind of resisting the introduction of AI technology into learning experiences, they kind of imagine that AI is a vending machine type, and you go and the students are pressing the buttons and they're getting the answers out, when it's very clear that that's absolutely not what's happening with these more advanced applications. And so I think that's, as educators, those are the kind of experience we have to set people up for now. This isn't, you have a learning activity and an assessment that can be completed with AI. There probably is going to be students who are going to do that and not get anything out of it. But when you create these environments where students can come in and just let their imaginations run and bring all of their skills and everything that's come before into it, then that's really where you get these more advanced learning outcomes.
Yeah.
Really
and I
cool.
think it is cool, and, kind of also on this internship piece, as an educator, I'm always hunting for internship opportunities for students. And a lot of the kind of the pushback is the same. So we'd love to, we got the funds, we don't have the time, we're strapped, we don't have anyone that can actually provide a meaningful mentorship. And I kind of get it. It can be really, really difficult, and quality mentorship does require your full attention. And there's a lot of these questions that you have. And, with AI and how like Dustin's using that to kind of learn and field out like those first 2 emails or like Slack requests, like how do I get around this technical problem, can be fielded with a good knowledge base of AI. And a good example of that is I was at the Energy Sec Summit last summer, and I was running a workshop on how to use the fundamentals of AI. And one of the gentlemen in the audience was a network engineer. And, I'm like, all right, like let's talk internships. Like if you actually had a student that knew how to set up their own knowledge base with AI and answer a lot of like the first questions that you may have if you had an intern, would you be able to actually pick them on and actually have a meaningful mentorship? And I'm like, ask, this tool some fundamental questions that you feel like you would get from an intern kind of learning this new type of networking technology. And he went through for about 10, 15 minutes. He came back to me. He's like, this is remarkably accurate. And absolutely, I could have an intern if they had this set of knowledge available, because then I wouldn't have to answer all these little questions. And I think that's a game changer with, how you can connect industry to academia now with internship opportunities or project-based learning. Like this is, Dustin's really kind of like exhibit A, of how employers can benefit from this, and demonstrating how valuable they can be within your organization, which leads me to another point, a little slight tangent is like, we can produce higher quality work. We can perform better. We can be more safe. We can be more secure, aligned with proper AI fundamentals in fluency. And it doesn't need to be this like reduction in force with this tool. I think with what Dustin is doing at conferences and teaching and leading and inspiring other students and educators is inspiring. And I love this story and I love hearing it. And every time I go to a conference with him, I try and just sit back and admire, how well he's doing along with the other students. And it's awesome. I can't put it into words, but I got big feels, and I'm really excited for other students benefiting from similar experiences like him.
Thanks, man. It's a nice place to be.
Yeah, it's really cool to see how this philosophy of SkarrNets of having AI help us human better, as we say, actually plays out with the student. Tara, how do you see this impacting creativity and confidence in learners?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, AI really is giving students the opportunity to get that big win right away, of actually doing something and achieving something where it may not be perfect. And sometimes it, maybe is not even the right answer, but they kind of get that big win of like, I got my project to run, I got my Raspberry Pi to run. I got, I figured out this strainer basically on your own, it sounds like, Dustin. And, I think that's what gives people the will to go on in their learning journey and not, have to slog through kind of a ton of the basics first. It's not like that you don't need those fundamentals underneath, but you can kind of pick them up as you go if you get that opportunity to create something in the beginning. And, I know there's a lot of educators are really concerned about like, well, what if they get it wrong? What if they do it wrong? I'm like, well, I can guarantee you, and I'm sure Dennis can back me up here, students are going to get it wrong no matter what their sources are. There's all sorts of different ways to take things the wrong way and go down the wrong path. And that's why, but if you're in the right environment with the right instructors, and then even going to these professional events and being actually part of the industry, there's going to be enough folks around who are going to be able to redirect you and get you back on path. And, I think that's the one thing that bothers me the most, I think, about the AI, people who are resistant to AI is like, well, what if the student gets the wrong idea? I'm like, well, then welcome to education, because that has been going on since we started doing education. Aristotle also had students that were going way off on the wrong path too.
That's one of the big things. Like, I'm a fan of projects. Like projects are what cement everything in for me. And I would say probably half of my projects, my end result is not what my first pass was. I did get it wrong. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to get it wrong, because I learned just as much from that as I did from getting it right in the first place, if not more, honestly. But to have those opportunities, first, you're not going to be able to build that critical thinking in using AI if you only expect them to get it right. There's going to be those moments where they need to get it wrong to cement that moment into their head of, well, not everything that comes out of this is going to be right. And like, that's how you're going to build that critical thinking.
Yeah, I think we started protecting students a lot more from being wrong. And maybe that's just something that is a generational thing, or just the way that, education is structured now. It's like, what happened to that freedom to fail? We need to bring that back a lot. So, 'cause I agree with you, Dustin. That's when you do it wrong. That's one of the best learning opportunities there is. And we got to make sure that there's, systems in place to make sure that students don't continue to get it wrong. That you have that course correct. But it's really, big part of learning.
Yeah, I mean, having been teaching for quite some time now, like, I can't even tell you how many times I saw students struggle with like very simple syntax, or they're reading something and it's like, is that a tick? What is that? And they make a couple mistakes, or they go through and make some more mistakes. And well, one, it's a great teachable moment. Like all of a sudden when they get it right, they, go through, all of a sudden they're like, yes, I kind of got it. Kind of like at the capture the flag yesterday, that one gentleman, like he was like banging his head against the wall and even kind of like, getting back and forth with Zoe who created it, and like, give me a hint, this and that. And then when he got it, it was like this big celebratory moment, and it wouldn't have been that big it wouldn't have been exciting if he wasn't making mistakes or struggling, and that's part of the learning process. I always encourage my students, like, be afraid to fail. This is a great place to do it. In the classroom, make mistakes, learn from it, learn from each other, because the more mistakes we learn from in the classroom, the less you'll make when you actually get into like your job, and this should be a safe space to do so. And we really kind of try and celebrate it, and, AI does make mistakes. So do we. Before there was AI, I had students like copying and pasting off Wikipedia as well. So it's like the internet's still, the internet before it was AI, and all the information we get from AI is from the internet. It's just faster and a little bit more organized. But there's still room to kind of like grow that critical thinking as we use this tool. And I think with how well students like Dustin are using that to pull through multiple source documents at once to actually say, this is what I need to do. This is the information I need to use to be successful, and have that critical thinking lens to actually move through complex projects quickly on their own, and then know when to actually leverage a human with real world experience is the big takeaway that we should be looking at how we actually prepare our future workforce. Because that's a really, that's an amplifier for every organization, and then the time that they're actually spending having that face to face, it's more about that experience, growing like their understanding, getting to know each other a little bit more, sharing experience, humaning better, versus just troubleshooting like what he couldn't find in a 21,000 page manual. And I think that's powerful. And, organizations that adopt this approach and kind of like scale it with their entire workforce, I think it's going to be a different experience, and it's awesome. And just seeing multiple students like Dustin, kind of like we have a similar project we have on where we have like 4 or 5 students all using AI in a couple different ways to support a small nonprofit. What they're learning from each other and how they're kind of sharing this as they're going through their journey is also going to be something that's really, really cool to unveil in a future podcast. But I think, educators that are on the fence, or employers that are on the fence and unsure of it, I think that this is a great way to kind of convey the success that someone can have when they have the critical thinking, the ability to be AI fluent, and also that drive. And I think Dustin's got quite a bit of grit, as well, to kind of like keep banging his head against something, knowing that he can be successful. And I've also seen confidence in students, like just really kind of like elevate up a notch as well, where they know that they can take on bigger things. They can be something bigger. They can grow. They can challenge themselves, knowing that they have this resource, and, kind of go back to online teaching, which is extremely difficult. Because as an instructor, you really can't be there when a student needs you the most. And, they're climbing this ladder, but then when they're stuck, they're just hanging on the ladder, shooting you a message through the learning management system or an email and waiting for that response, to when you can get it, versus like, let me pull this other tool out and get me to the next rung of my ladder. And then when they get to the top, they can share their experience with that student and what they learned. And that's transformative. And then when you actually get that face-to-face time or that email exchange with that student or that, online video call, it's a different conversation altogether. It's awesome. It's like, how did you get through that? How did you problem solve that? What prompt did you do? Well, first it told me this, but it was way off. And then I did this, and I think that's way better than like walking them through a screen share of like, oh, you click here, kind of like the example Dustin gave of like, he was on the wrong view. He still had the understanding. He still knew what he needed to do. He knew where his struggle was. He just didn't know what menu to be in, and that's not cheating. That's not plagiarism. That's just bumping him along and setting him up for that journey. And this is fantastic to hear.
So those are the skills though that you need to be teaching right now though, I think. Like for some people it is really intuitive that you need to push back and be inquisitive and kind of use your resources. And I think that's one of the things that is, that's why we really focus on that in our curriculum with SkarrNet, is teaching those thinking skills. We're not actually, the tech skills, yes, are part of it, but it's really that, like, how do you foster that spirit of curiosity, the rigor of intellectual inquiry. And that's not intuitive, some for everybody, some folks, the folks who are really getting ahead with it, like you, Dustin, are like, they're leaning into it because they kind of already have that built in to how they work, but it's not universal. So, and I don't like to see students sell themselves short either. They get AI and they say, oh man, this is so easy. I don't get how, this is just like, this is so, so much easier now that I have this tool, but it's because you've already got like the mental capacity and skills set to know how to use that tool. And that's really what we're trying to teach with everything we do. So
I'd say it's what we are teaching.
It is. We're not trying. We're doing. But
yes.
Don't sell yourself short. It's not automatic for sure.
The fun part is with having two kids of my own, to still be imparting that same mindset on my kids. Like, I do not shy away from letting my son use my account to do research and understand something that he doesn't understand. There are days that it's absolutely hey, can you explain this to me? And we'll sit down and we'll talk about it. And there are other days that he's like, can I borrow your phone to ask some questions for a few minutes? Yes, you can. And to watch him work through the same process, but it's always a matter of like building that mindset, that model that this is how we're going to approach this. And while we're getting answers, like, we're constantly curious. We always question just a little bit so that you know that what you're getting is useful. And I feel like watching him started at 12, by the time he's actually in college, he's going to be far beyond even where I am.
Yeah. And on the asking questions thing too, I think one of the things that makes like having AI fluent students is the questions. And in a classroom, you always have your 3, 4, 5 students that are always asking the questions. Dustin, you're one of those, Yep. And as a teacher, you always love that because ask me questions, somebody ask me questions, kind of keep things engaging. And you have a lot of students that kind of sit back. They still have questions. The students that are quiet still have them. If not, they have more. But there's a barrier to them actually asking these questions. And what I really like about tools like this as well is you're providing those students that don't want to ask that question in a classroom a safe way to explore their learning in a way that they're comfortable. Kind of like how Dustin mentioned, like he would just bombard teachers with questions. And I've had those students. I love it, but there's only so much time you got when you got 24, 30 students. Like the show must go on. You still got to kind of get through your slides and the material. But those students that can actually go back and have that conversation and keep asking their questions until they're comfortable with it, that's powerful for them. And that's something that not every teacher can do because there's just not enough to go around. Once again, it's an extension of yourself, like especially if you're the one coaching students on how to use these tools responsibly and productively to kind of still meet your learning outcomes, they're going to go way beyond what you have in your syllabus, like way beyond. And I think that's something we should celebrate.
Oh my gosh. So good. Well, before we wrap, I'd love to hear real quick from each of you answer to this question. So there's a misconception that AI is sort of taking over and is going to be doing everything for us. Where do humans still matter most in this emerging day and age?
Yeah, I mean, what a great question. And I don't want to, it's easy to kind of dismiss the argument that people are making that AI is going to take over everything because it seems so far-fetched. But then you have the news that you hear this week about how Amazon thinks they're going to replace, up to 75% of even warehouse workers with robotics and that are powered by AI. So, I don't like to be too dismissive of that, but we're still at a point where, AI is only as powerful as what goes into it. And it's not able to generate anything completely novel yet. We're not at that point of, that kind of artificial general intelligence. AI it's got a lot in its knowledge base, but it still doesn't have the power to know what's important. And that's still, I think, very much strictly in the domain of the human at this point, knowing, AI can spot patterns, but it doesn't know what patterns matter. It doesn't know the real world context that those patterns are happening in. So that judgment piece and knowing where these responses from AI are coming from, why they matter, and then the really essential piece of knowing what to ask next. And that's the part that's the real skill. And it's not intuitive for everybody. It's a skill that has to, you either have it or you have to learn it. So I think we're going to be still in charge of that for some time to come.
It also seems like there should be a little bit of, a reckoning. The skills and abilities that you possess when you use the tools in your toolbox effectively. You're more efficient, you're more capable. Like, these are things that if you asked an employer if they wanted more efficient, more capable employees, they'd be like, yes, yes, please. But also, like, your expectation of the amount of work being done by them. Like, is that reasonable for the quality of life that your employees have in the first place? So yes, while AI may come in and have the ability to remove jobs, it may right size those jobs to what people can actually do. There is that point where people do run themselves into the ground just trying to keep up with the expectations of what's on their plate. And these tools provide a means to meet that workload, to build the systems that they need to actually get ahead of whatever it is. And the reality is, if AI is the thing that brings them to a point where they are going from treading water to walking tall in the room, like, why are you getting rid of them? Like, there is no reason to remove those employees. You just improve their quality of life just by allowing them to breathe. And I feel like that's a conversation that probably will need to be had across the workforce.
Totally. We've had one person doing the job of 3 people for a long time, and that's the direction we've been going for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's a great point.
Yeah, automation has always displaced workers, in the history of our workforce. It's kind of, it's how it goes, but then there's new occupations that are created, and then those springboard into different occupations that we didn't even project that would kind of be there once that market actually matures. And AI is still in its infancy, man. but I still haven't seen any technology advance this quickly. I'm still just every time I kind of like flip open my news feed and there's some sort of new update or new feature, I'm like, this is quick. And I think that's what's making it a little bit difficult to kind of grasp with. And a lot of the headlines about AI aren't necessarily the best for the technology. Ultimately, humans make decisions. Humans are the ones doing critical thinking. A board of directors is deciding to lay off human beings on behalf of technology. It's not the technology all on its own. And I think that just needs to be something that's captured as well. There's going to be some jobs that just maybe need to go away. Maybe they are damaging on human beings and their bodies, and it's not, the expectations are ridiculous for the quality of life that they're enduring in manufacturing or whatever it is that they're doing. But then what do those people still do for meaningful work? They have to do something. They have to retool into something. And I think as we look at kind of reducing certain sectors and certain occupations, we need more employers and leaders in industry to have a visionary mindset of what humans can do with these tools versus what this tool can replace in the workforce. So when I see mass layoffs of human beings, I'll be cynical and say that those leaders lack vision. They don't know what people are capable of with these tools. They don't see heart. They don't see people's values. And there's going to be companies that actually do. And I think that's like, as we decide collectively, like what technology we put on our phones, on our computers, or where we shop, that's where we can decide where this goes. Because, within this group right here, we're not making the tool. We're figuring out how to use it best. But as we advocate and as everyone becomes AI aware, we can decide what technology rises to the top and what can be left in the dust, and what we don't have to contribute to. And I think how we use AI in the future all comes down to us, really, we have to empower ourselves to understand the tool to make informed decisions. And people that are like really excelling with these tools too within the workforce, like Dustin's going to move up that ladder quick. And there's going to be other people who are not. I have friends right now that are working, seasoned project managers are like, well, I'm afraid of these layoffs. How do I learn these tools? So I think it is valuable for everyone to kind of look at themselves too, and a little bit of reflection is like, all right, like how can I become a little bit more savvy with AI, ready, fluent, whatever, and move forward. But, this is a technology that we created, and I would encourage everyone to get savvy with it and get in the know so we can control its future.
Oh, what a wonderful note to end on. Well, thank you all for being here. Dustin, for sharing your story and really giving us insight into the learner perspective. What we saw today isn't about AI replacing mentors. It's about reimagining how we learn. Faster, deeper, more human. Dustin's story shows what happens when we stop spending mentorship time on the what and start focusing on the why. That's the shift from repetition to revelation. So next time on SkarrCast, we're taking this conversation a step further. We're looking at how programs like the Urban League's Bridges LA initiative are using this same model of accelerated learning and AI-powered mentorship to retrain entire workforces. What's happening down there is changing the playbook, and we're going to break that open, so stay tuned on that. Thanks all for watching, and we will see you next time.